It falls into a special subgenre of movie. That is the paraphrase remake. Now, there are often certain films that are paraphrase remakes. They're not a remake per se of another movie, but they wouldn't exist without this other particular movie's existence. And when you watch it and you know about that other movie, that's almost part of the enjoyment you have watching this new movie. Some of the real paraphrase movies are Dressed to Kill and Psycho. Those are words from director Quentin Tarantino on Brian De Palma's 1980 film, Dressed to Kill. Seeing Faces in Movies is a podcast where each month I focus on the works of a different director or cinematographer, and each week I invite a guest on to discuss the film and the artist's filmography. Today we're talking about Dressed to Kill. So quick synopsis of the film is, a mysterious blonde woman kills one of a psychiatrist's patients, and then goes after the high-class call girl who witnessed the murder. The film stars Michael Caine as Dr. Elliot, Angie Dickinson as Kate Miller, Nancy Allen as Liz Blake, Keith Gordon as Peter Miller, and Dennis Franz as Detective Marino. It's written by Brian De Palma, directed by Brian De Palma, cinematography by Ralph D. Bode, edited by Gerald B. Greenberg, and music by Pino Donaggio. Before we get into the conversation, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for listening to Seeing Faces in Movies, whether you're a new listener or a returning one. I appreciate you being here. As this is an indie podcast, sometimes we might run into some audio or tech issues. And in this episode, you'll notice my audio is a little different than usual. I didn't realize my mic had disconnected until it was time to edit. I chose not to re-record because I didn't want to lose the magic from our original conversation about the film. So close your eyes. Unless you're driving, then please don't do that. But close your eyes and imagine you're listening to a fuzzy, long-distance phone conversation between two great friends on an amazing film. And join us as we put on our best wigs and get dressed to kill. So today, my guest is a repeat guest, and I would have no other person with me to open up Brian De Palma month. And you'll recognize her name from a past episode we did on Claire Denis' Trouble Every Day. But today I have Eugina Gelbelman with me. Thank you so much for coming back.
Thank you for having me back.
No, I mean, I am so excited to talk about today's film with you. It's like, I've already liked this film, but on this specific rewatch, I was like, I love this movie and I love this man. And I can't wait to talk to you about this film. I won't force you to reintroduce yourself. I think everyone should go back to listen to the Trouble Every Day episode. It's a great episode. You can learn more about her work. And I'll put it in the show notes again as well. But I know you watch a lot of films. Is there any that you've watched in recent weeks, months that you would recommend, like 3 of them to the audience and myself?
Well, I agree with you. I don't need an introduction. I'm just kidding. I've watched so much shit that it gets all muddled in my mind. So sometimes I had to check my letterbox to find out what I watched recently. But Night Moves.
Okay.
Yeah, with Gene Hackman, Arthur Penn. Dangerous Game with Abel. It's another Abel Ferrara film. I'm trying to expand my Abel Ferrara filmography knowledge. So I watched that with Harvey Keitel. And then I rewatched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I only saw once in the theater and I hadn't seen it again. And I watched it a second time and I kind of liked it more than I did when I first saw it. So those are the 3 movies. I feel they're in a similar, maybe not Dangerous Game, but definitely Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Night Moves are like noirish films. And Dangerous Game is more like an Abel Ferrara therapy session or whatever it was. Dangerous Game was interesting. It like plumbed some psychology about men and women, and Madonna was like decent, it kind of good in it almost. I was like, wow, Madonna's not bad in this. And Harvey Keitel was amazing as usual. You know?
Yeah. Night Moves I have seen, and then Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I genuinely like that movie.
Yes.
Like it's one of those, I did see it in the cinema when it came out, and I then watched it afterwards during the pandemic. And yeah, it's long, but it merits the time. It's the storytelling in that movie. He could have retired on that one. I know he has one more, but he really could have retired. Not that I'm saying retire, bitch, but I'm just like,
retire, bitch.
I'm just like, he could have, and that would have been like an amazing end.
That's a good sell to get Quentin on this podcast. Retire.
Right? No, yeah. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a great movie. It's probably my favorite DiCaprio performance too. I just think he's so funny in it.
Really genuinely, I agree with you. He was doing some subtle things in that movie, and I felt it was one of his more like maybe closer to his own, personality type things, and it felt more honest. Like, it was even spoofing himself, kind of like.
Yeah, he very rarely plays like just a regular dude.
Yeah,
not that guy's a regular guy; he's an actor, but like compared to his other characters,
character was like lovable, but at the same time, it was like he's such like a loser, even though he is famous and everything. He's such like a pathetic. And that's relatable, even like even movie stars and TV stars are just like us or whatever. But
exactly.
I love that movie because the vibes are very I like movies that are just like a good atmosphere and like have fun, like, and I like noirs, and I like that era of LA too. And it was cool that he had the whole Polanski, Sharon Tate thing there at the same time.
So yeah, those are 3 great movies.
Yeah, I mean, if you enjoy a little bit of dark stuff, but noir stuff. I didn't understand Night Moves at all. Like that movie, the plot of that movie, I didn't get it at all.
Okay, I'm glad that you said that because a lot of people love that movie and I don't dislike it, but I don't love it. I probably need to watch it again, but I was like, I don't know what's happening. And at some point, my favorite part of that movie is when Hackman is just in bed eating fondue. I'm like, sir, that's not a bed meal.
You totally almost, you made the movie for me because the entire movie, I was like, wait, this is the movie where Felicia sent me that thing where he's post-sex fondue. And I was just waiting the whole movie for when it was going to happen. Like,
it's great. Only Hackman could do that.
Like that movie, it's almost like the plot is irrelevant. Like I was waiting for something to coalesce. Like at least with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like it all starts to make sense. With Night Moves, it makes even less sense. You get at the end, like, what was happening at all? But I just like Gene Hackman so much in that movie. I like his outfits. I like how they shoot him. Like I like the cinematography, the vibes again, like it coasts on vibes in a very fun way. So I don't know. It's just kind of like, also I used it as sort of inspiration for whatever as like aesthetic 70s inspiration for whatever the hell I'm trying to write. So I don't know.
Oh, nice. That's my favorite era of American.
A cool guy in a cool like jacket driving a cool car. What else do you fucking want in a movie,
Absolutely nothing. That's all I want. Well, I'm ready to get into Dress to Kill, if you are.
Yeah.
The tagline for Dress to Kill is, every nightmare has a beginning. This one never ends. That's funny. It makes it sound like it's extreme slasher movie.
It does.
I mean, technically there are slasher elements, but it's more of like a cerebral thriller.
As far as movies from that era go, it's like slick. Like it's very aesthetically pleasing, kind of. It's not really like a grimy slasher film. It's very polished and classy. It's kind of a classy De Palma.
Right. And I'm glad that you said that because some people kind of describe him as sleazy. And I'm like, I don't think he's sleazy. He makes stuff that I think is in the back of everyone's fantasies and is just putting it out there. But it's so beautiful to watch. Like his films are beautiful. They're not sleazy. They're not gross.
Oh, it's crafted very well. Like it's not, sleazy. Maybe the content is sleazy, but I'm sure you can see my air quotes.
Yeah.
You can hear my air quotes, but maybe the content is slightly sleazy, but it's not done in it's very slick and beautiful, and the cinematography is amazing, and the production design is amazing. The music is good. Like it's all on all levels. It's very high quality. stuff he's doing.
He's not slacking off. He's not making a B film. This is like an A grade, top-notch film.
Like maybe B movie content, like genre content, but extremely at a high artistic level.
That's what I aspire to do, to be honest.
I know.
He's like my inspiration for if I ever make a film.
I think Dress to Kill is maybe, for me, one of the most perfect erotic thrillers, right next to Basic Instinct. Like it's Basic Instinct and Dress to Kill. Those are the two, like top of the game.
Yeah. And not to get too much into it, because I definitely will be doing a month on him, but Verhoeven is another one who just knows how to do this thing properly.
Yep. And Adrian Lynn with Fatal Attraction.
Yes. He also did 9.5 Weeks too, right?
And incredible. I want to rewatch 9.5 Weeks.
Wow, that's a movie. That was a fun time.
People used to have fun, for a while.
They really did. That's in the 80s. Everyone was on coke.
Exactly. They used up all the fun.
They really did. They left us all with just depression. So a couple quick fun facts, I guess, about the film. So Angie Dickinson, who plays Kate Miller, said the scene where her character gets seduced in the back of a taxi was filmed on location in New York, where several gawkers observed the scene and shouted, "Right on, policewoman." I guess she had been in a TV show where she played this policewoman.
Oh, okay.
She had to do the scene in front of just random people just watching her.
So that was all in front of the Metropolitan, like for real?
So the outside scenes are the Metropolitan, but I think the inside I read was Museum in Philadelphia, because I guess they couldn't film inside the Metropolitan.
Because that's what I was always noticing whenever I watch it, because I can clearly see the outside is definitely outside the Met, but inside is like, what museum is this? Doesn't look like the Met. She's I love her in this film. I like that she's a little bit older than you generally see women in this kind of film.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, she's like more mature, and she genuinely, you believe her as this housewife and mom, and just she wants some on the side, like what's the problem?
I mean, she's barely getting it at home. So can you blame her?
No, I don't blame her at all. Goddamn De Palma, why'd she have to die?
I know. Well, we'll get into that for sure. But speaking of Angie Dickinson, she was 50 at the time, so that's not something you would see. They did use a body double for the shower scene. So it's her face, but her body. The actress whose body didn't want to get credited for it, because she was just like, let Angie get the credit for that. Because I remember the first couple times I was like, damn, okay, she does better than I do.
Yeah, okay, well, yeah, if she's 50, the breasts are extremely perky. So yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's a perk that...
They're standing. They're upright.
Another fact. So as a young man, at his mother's urging, De Palma followed his father and used recording equipment to try and catch him with another woman. And this incident inspired this movie.
Really?
I thought that was so interesting.
That kid is actually a stand-in for De Palma.
For De Palma. Yeah, I could see that too. I felt like he was like, this is me.
And I remember watching an interview with him with De Palma where Baumbach is talking to him. And I think De Palma says, I used to build computers. And in this one, the kid's building a computer. That's interesting that he has like a side character who saves the day.
Right?
Yeah.
I love that. Keith Gordon, who played the son, Peter Miller, he actually wanted to learn how to create films or make films and how that was done. So he asked De Palma if he could shadow him. And De Palma agreed. So he was on set every day just watching him. Like, imagine learning how to create a film from De Palma himself, especially at that era of his work.
Wow. I want to be that. I want to be Keith Gordon.
Right?
I like when directors like down to earth and they actually they love filmmaking so much that they do want to share it with other people who love it.
Yeah.
I don't like when they're like elitist about it. Like, oh, I'm such a genius. You could never even stand near me. Like, I don't like that.
Like, you were in this position at some point in your life.
Exactly. Everyone stars,
So in the late 70s, De Palma wrote a screenplay based on Gerald Walker's article, Cruising, but he was unable to obtain the rights to the material. And Cruising eventually went to Friedkin, who directed it. De Palma used some of the elements from this Cruising screenplay he wrote for this film.
Oh,
And they both
nice.
came out the same year, oddly enough, 1980.
What? Cruising.
Cruising, oh my God.
I love cruising. Yeah.
I love that movie.
It's
That's
a
a fun
lot.
movie.
It's a lot.
I like movies where you're like, wow, this is a lot.
Favorite fun fact about Cruising is that as research for Cruising, like Friedkin and his main crew would just go trolling the meatpacking district.
Yeah.
to all the gay clubs, all the leather clubs. Are you sure how much of that was research and how much of it was just wanting to troll a gay club?
Exactly that. Because I think when they had to shoot inside the club, he had to wear
the costume,
dress up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was like in a jockstrap or whatever it was. And he's like, no one was talking to me.
I wish I could see that behind the scenes footage of Cruising. Oh my God.
Right. I'm like, where are the images? I want to see this picture of him.
And there's supposedly a missing 20 minutes of Cruising that's just straight up gay pornography. Like they're actually having sex. It's just now I'm wondering what the 20 minutes of Cruising, because the movie itself is pretty explicit anyway. Someone, what the hell we're missing?
Well, speaking of, this film was supposed to get an X rating, but De Palma fought it just to get it down to an R rating. But if you're ready to get into the film, I'm ready.
Yeah.
The film opens up with a shower scene. So we've already kind of a little bit touched upon that. De Palma loves a shower scene. He loves women soaping up their boob. And I love that for him. People give him shit for the shower scenes, but I'm just like, listen, we all soap up our boobs when we're in the shower. What's the problem with showing an accurate shower scene? It's great, especially the way he shoots this one. The body double one is a different style of shooting, but the one in this one is great, the way he shoots that scene. So how do you feel about that being the opener to this film?
Who doesn't enjoy a good soaping up your tits? I mean, I think we don't have enough of those.
We don't.
At least not like done in with gorgeous cinematography, good lighting and all the rest. It's so unique, like to him. Even his other movies that open on women soaping up their tits, which is what Body Double opens up on that. Mm-hmm. It's even unique itself. I like the mix of like, it's so over the top too. Like the expressions Angie Dickinson is making are so funny.
Yeah.
And I just like how ridiculous it is, but also how genuinely erotic it is at the same time. And it also mixes this sex impulse with like the fear of the repercussions of the sex. Mm-hmm. The other side of it, like, because that scene ends with her being like fantasy raped by this guy.
Yes.
In this fantasy or in this dream, suddenly a guy comes from behind her and is like initially raping or murder, whatever he's doing to her. I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah.
Sort of what seemed like the two dualities of humanity, which is like sex and death.
Basically, there's no dialogue, and that's something we see throughout this film in scenes that are probably the most important scenes of just, we're watching it. He's placing us as the voyeur. We're just watching this happen. We have no say in what's happening. And because there's no dialogue, you never know what's going to happen next. And you're shocked at what happens in that scene. It sets the tone.
Like the first part of it with Angie Dickinson, it's almost a silent film. Mm-hmm. She doesn't talk a lot of it.
No.
Just music and her, just imagery of her walking around New York, having her day in the life of a woman who gets murdered in an elevator later.
Yeah. Well, I didn't realize until I was reading about it, she only has 2 scenes of dialogue. One is with the son, when she's talking to him about, you know, his device that he's building. And the second is with Michael Caine, Dr. Elliot. And then after that, she doesn't say anything. It's just her reacting to things and things happening to her.
It's almost like, to me, when she's taught those 2 scenes where she's talking, it's almost like, oh, wow, wait, she talks? Mm-hmm. I thought we were silently following. I love how it's propelled. So this movie is very just visual.
Yes.
Visual and the score. Mm-hmm. Score is great too.
What he says is that he's not a dialogue person. He's like, I am not going to pretend to be a great dialogue writer, what I like to do is show you what's happening as opposed to telling you. He likes the way to shoot a scene. And when dialogue comes in, it's because it needs to be there, as opposed to just having people talk throughout it. There could have been a dialogue. She could have been talking to people, but it would not have had the same effect as her not saying a single word and it's a 9-minute long sequence.
Yeah, this movie has sequences without a lot of long sequences that are like iconic. So the museum one, the opening, the subway one. There's so many like iconic like imagery sequences that I think stayed in my mind, because the first time I saw this movie, I was like, I don't know, a teenager. And then I didn't see it again for a long time, but always in the back of my head was like, it even inspired me to write my own stuff. I was like, that museum thing, so amazing. Like, it's so, I love how sexy the whole, like, is sexy, the concept of like picking up a woman in a museum is.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't think of it like that. Before we get into that museum sequence, I do feel like there's a bit of a, I don't know if you want to say elephant in the room in terms of this film, because it always gets compared to Psycho, the Hitchcock film.
Yeah.
I'm going to read just a quick quote from the New York. They say he borrows a narrative energy from classic Hollywood movies, a feel for the balance of the script and for the spring-loaded dovetailing of scenes that gives his films a relentless forward motion. He's a huge old Hollywood fan. He's obviously a big Hitchcock fan, and he's never pretended not to be. This film has a woman that we're following. You just assume this is going to be your protagonist for the whole film. She's killed. I don't know how far into the film it is. It's probably 30, 40 minutes, maybe 30 minutes into the film.
It's like basically the inciting incident is her being killed.
Yeah. And then she's gone. There's no flashbacks to her. We're done with her. And then you get that parallel in Psycho as well, where Marion Crane, she's killed. Yeah. And you're like, okay, she's gone. We're no longer following. But he did say, for this film specifically, he said, my style is very different from Hitchcock's. I'm dealing with surrealistic, erotic imagery. Hitchcock never got into that too much. Psycho is basically about a heist. A girl steals money for her boyfriend so they can get married. Dress to Kill is about a woman's secret erotic life. And if anything, Dress to Kill has more of a Buñuel feeling to it. So have you seen Belle de Jour, Buñuel film?
Yeah.
So I've seen people compare it to that and just kind of like fantasy that she has and the eroticness to that. But he very much makes this film his own. So how do you feel about the temptation for people to say that this is just straight up Psycho borrowing from Hitchcock, as opposed to him? One, as a sign out before, I'm like, Psycho was a book before Hitchcock even touched it. So as much as I love Psycho, I love what Hitchcock did with it, but it was a book. How do you feel about the comparison to Hitchcock all the time?
Well, I guess people assume that Hitchcock never stole anything from anyone. I tend to believe that the best artists steal from everybody, and then they just make it their own.
Yeah.
I mean, I prefer De Palma, to be honest. Because Hitchcock, I like Hitchcock too, but his exploration of the sexuality was more on a psychological level, and with De Palma, it's more on a visceral, physical level as well. Like, there's the psychological element, but he also just puts it out there, right up front, which is more fun for me.
I agree with what you said. As an artist, whatever medium, we don't live in vacuum. You're going to get inspiration from someone at some point, whether you want to admit it or not. He does admit, these people do inspire me, but he's creating his own thing. There's a reason why you'll watch a film today and you're like, oh, this person is doing like a De Palma.
Yeah, now people are doing De Palma, but worse. Yeah. Not as good.
Exactly. So
the only crime is trying to do something and being inspired by something and doing it worse.
Yeah.
If you do your own version and kind of improve upon it, or like at least not worse, then it's fine. If you make it worse, then that's bad. But he didn't make it worse. Like, he took Hitchcock and he ran with it, and he did his own thing. And it's building upon Hitchcock. It's not like
the way the camera operates in this film, because the camera is its own. It's like the replacement for you in this film, because it's leading you. It's following people a lot in this film. The camera angles are great. And then you get your De Palma diopter shots and lenses that he uses. He said something about the way he likes to alienate the audience. He says, I'm constantly standing outside, making people aware that they're watching a film. At the same time, you're emotionally involved in it. And I love that he said that because you're watching this and you're like, this is a movie. He's never trying to pretend like, oh, this is real life. He doesn't take the material seriously. He takes the way he's making the film seriously, but the material is not serious.
Well, the artifice of it is part of the fabric of the film. Like they're always rewatching. I love how many different points of view there are. There's a constant shifting point of view in the film.
Mm-hmm.
In like the cab scene where she's getting fingered in the cab, there's a camera shot where it's like from her point of view of her laying down in the cab.
Love that.
Like, okay, we're suddenly in her point of view. Okay. I feel like that whole sequence with the museum and in the cab is we're in Angie Dickinson's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And then we shift to the escort's point. I forgot her name, but
oh yeah, Liz.
The character who we focus on in the second half of the film. We shift to her perspective. She sees Michael Caine in the glass of the elevator. So we're in her point of view now. And then we go into the son's point of view. Like there's a lot of shifting POV that's really like fun and interesting. And there's so many there's the split diopter shots. There's so many and the split diopter shots I feel like is almost audience point of view. Like they're showing us like with the glove, where she throws away the glove, and then there's the split diopter with the hand taking the glove away.
Yes.
That's revealing information she doesn't know to us. And that's cool. Like it's a constant, the camera's everywhere. Mm-hmm. It's fun.
Speaking of that scene where the hand takes away the glove, so right after that happens, she notices the guy in the cab waving the glove to bring her over, and she goes over. And I will not pretend to say that I noticed this. It wasn't until I was watching the interview with him and Baumbach, where Baumbach mentions that the camera panned across Bobby. And when I saw that clip in that interview, I got like shivers. I was like, what? I've seen this more than once and I never noticed it.
I've never noticed that you see, Michael Caine in the wig.
And I'm just like, oh my God, that's terrifying.
That is very creepy. That's a really cool, creepy way to do something.
Yeah.
Like, I love it. I love the little detail. There's so many details. Mm-hmm. That are so thought through, and De Palma said that he storyboards everything. Mm-hmm. So like, this is all very meticulous. Like, and I love that. I
like that he treats the audience with enough respect to be like, I don't have to spell everything out for you. He makes films that are so insanely rewatchable, and he's doing it specifically. Like, there's no way you could catch everything on your first watch, even on your second watch. That is what makes a great film, to be able to watch it over and over again, because there is a twist to this, but it doesn't matter if you know the twist, because you will catch something. And each time, even this watch, it's the scene where Liz is in the car, I think, being followed by Bobby. And then it cuts to Dr. Elliot, Michael Caine, on the phone being like, did Bobby get my messages? Tell her to call her back. When you're watching the first time, you just assume this is taking place at the same time. You realize, oh, he's playing with time. This is happening at a later time. It's happening even before. But he treats the audience with enough respect to be like, you guys are smart enough to know. You'll recall what I did.
Well, I think that's what the makings of a really good thriller is like, there's so many clever elements in it that you only notice if you rewatch it a few times. Like, it keeps unveiling itself. I've seen it maybe 4 times or 3 or 4 times. Mm-hmm. Each time I notice something else. I'm like, wait, I didn't see that before. Not even a thriller, any good movie, like upon rewatch, when you see another shade of something or you see another detail, the fact that he is playing with time, and he's not playing with time in like an annoying, obvious way. And it's not like onerous. He's not like making you concentrate on the fact like, oh my God, isn't it so cool how I'm playing with time? It's just like a small detail that you don't even notice.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you notice it later. He's using the split diopter to like play with time. That's really cool.
I just love the way he shoots his films, and it's just so amazing to watch what he's doing and being able to also provide us with a story that's captivating. And the pacing is just so good in this movie. Like, it could be longer. It's like a tight, I think it's an hour and 40, and it just goes by so quickly because you're just so engrossed in everything that's happening.
So entertaining. Mm-hmm. Sucks you right in, and you don't get sucked back out until it's over.
Yeah.
There's maybe a few scenes that like maybe I wasn't as invested in. Like, I don't care so much about the kid, even though the kid is an important place. I didn't need like I get it. He's part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, if it didn't have the kid, it wouldn't matter to me. But it has the kid because it's part of the plot, so that's fine.
Yeah, he adds on to like the voyeur element. It's pretty much about the three blondes, essentially. Four, I guess Michael Caine's also blonde,
Yeah.
you know, when he's playing the doctor. Where I wanted to move it to was kind of the camera, which we've already talked about, but as acting as kind of like an unreliable narrator. So we kind of talked about that with the camera jumps. What he's doing is creating a narrative with the camera and using it as a way to sometimes mislead you onto things, being like, oh, this is where it's going. We've already talked about this, but there's no way you would think that Angie Dickinson is going to die. Even in the elevator, you're like, maybe she's going to survive. No, she's dead. Okay. If you want to go back a bit before she even gets into the elevator, after she wakes up at the guy's place, there's two instances that are kind of misleading. She sees the doctor note that this guy has multiple STDs. She's shook out of her mind. She's like, what?
That was funny. I always laugh at that part.
Yeah, I would have been like, wow. So I'm being punished immediately. As she's leaving, she also remembers she doesn't have her wedding ring. So now she has to try and figure out, oh, I'm in the elevator. I need to go back up to this guy's place. And you're thinking, okay, she's going to go back to get the ring. She's going to have to confront this guy and being like, sir, one, you didn't tell me. Two, this is reckless behavior. And three, you just have these papers out in the open for all to see.
Here's my paperwork of my syphilis.
He's like, well, I guess I wasn't hiding it, you know, but that doesn't happen. Obviously, she doesn't make it outside of the elevator. There's a lot of instances of the camera just misleading you in a different way.
One thing about the elevator, narratively, how he's really punishing her character in like mean ways. Like if she didn't go back up for the stupid wedding ring, she wouldn't have gotten murdered.
Yeah.
I like that tension of like, God damn it, woman, you know, if only you just like been like, okay, I guess my wedding ring's gone.
Yeah.
And the girl staring at her in the elevator too. There's like a lot of things happening in a very short space of like just her going back up to get her wedding ring. A lot of tension.
It is tense when Bobby gets into the elevator. It's because of the way she's dressed and the sunglasses and just the awful wig that you're like, I don't trust this woman already off the bat. But she could have just been some regular weirdo kind of woman in the elevator. But immediately, not only is this person in here, but the elevator is stalling. So that you're like, okay, something's about to happen. And it's pretty gruesome to be killed with a straight razor.
I remember, I'm trying to remember the first time I saw it, I really was shocked that she was killed like right off the bat. I was like, wait a second, isn't she the main character? Like, why are we killing her? And yeah, I the first time I watched it, I wasn't aware that it was Michael Caine. Like,
I had no idea. But that's another scene where it's silent. There's no words being, you know, because there's no need. What is she going to do?
And you have the slow motion of, what's her name? The prostitute?
Liz.
Of Liz, like seeing the hand with knife come down and the blood and her hand reaching out, and it's slow motion and the music, and it's so just perfectly. And then it's the really creepy shot at the end of that scene where it's her hand coming out of the elevator and they're just pushing on the hand. That's a creepy image. So yeah, it's just shit. That's what you call a well done slashing thriller.
Exactly. It's pretty much like an art house film.
It is art.
It's just, so you know, it's not insufferable. At least for me, it's not insufferable.
Well, yeah, you don't want that's the thing. Like art house, you run the risk of becoming insufferable. But Brian De Palma was always entertaining.
I know there's people where De Palma's not for them, and that's fair enough. I don't agree, but that's fair enough.
Everyone has the right to be wrong.
Oh, like you can't deny that the man is entertaining.
No, you can't.
Speaking of the silence in that scene, we have another long, probably the longest of the silent scenes, which is the museum scene. Mm-hmm. From the minute she gets there until she leaves, it's silence. And we get her just looking at pictures. We get her people watching. Then we get the man who sits next to her. I love her performance in this because she kind of looks over at him in a flirty way and he doesn't respond. And she's like, oh, you know, she's kind of shocked and she takes off her hand. or gloves, sorry, from her hand to show the wedding ring. So I've read different things about this. I'm wondering what your opinion is. So some people are saying she takes it off to show that she's married, so she's not available. Some people say that she takes it off to show that she's married, but that she's up for a non-committal rendezvous, essentially, because she's married, so she's not going to want a relationship. How do you read why she took off the glove?
I think it's showing her ambivalence. Like it's leaving it up to him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to resist by showing you that I'm married, but only in a very kind of passive way. Like, yeah, here's my wedding ring, but
yeah.
I'm not, explicitly saying anything. Here it is.
Why did she even take it off?
Yeah, that was weird. Why would she take off her wedding ring?
No, I know it's just, as a thing for the plot, but there's no actual reason.
De Palma really, like, her character is really, like, punished. She's the very Anna Karenina character. She suffers incredibly for just wanting to have some sex on the side as a woman in a marriage.
Yeah.
They don't let her off easy.
No.
That's how that type of movie works. You have the femme. It's funny that the femme fatale is like Michael Caine.
Yeah. Actually, as a side note, his agent said to him after he watched this film, he's like, yeah, don't ever play a role like that again because you look awful as a woman.
He didn't look great.
I've seen better.
But it did work. It worked in the context of the film. I don't think it was supposed to make for a very attractive woman.
No. He's not Cillian Murphy, in Breakfast on Play-Doh.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure not.
But speaking of silence in the museum scene, something that you said before, the shifting of the point of views, we shift from following her as she's searching around for this guy because she's on a chase now. And it switches from her point of view and us now kind of following. That builds another layer of tension. There was already tension and there's more tension being added. So how do you feel about the shifting of point of views in that scene and it kind of just racing through the museum as we figure out why this guy is playing with her and why she's playing along?
It's a fascinating scene for that reason, the shift in perspective. Like we're following one person and one person's following one person and the other person's following them. The two people like shifting from I'm following you to no, I'm following you now. It makes it a fun scene and it makes it a memorable one too. And it's sort of a very unique. Like if it didn't shift perspective like that, I don't even think it would be that memorable. But because it does, it's so interesting. I like the little pauses too, where she's just staring at other random people. I like it's so like realistic. Like you're in a museum and you're looking at whatever other people are doing. And you're so in her head for that reason. And then you and looking at the paintings and the paintings start to look weird almost. Like we're looking at this gorilla painting and it's like the gorilla painting starts to have its own fascination. Like, why are we staring at this gorilla painting? And then I like the little notes, the little household chores she must, pick up.
That's like you're making your grocery list at the museum. It's
a funny little interspersed with all of that is just her doing her little household chores notes in her notebook as a housewife.
You would never assume something bad's going to happen to this woman at that point. It's just a day in her life. And then when the guy sits next to her, as any woman, you're immediately like, there were several other benches. Why are you sitting right next to me?
Yeah.
And that's when you're like, okay. It clicks. I assume it would click for men or other people as well. But for someone who identifies as a woman, immediately I was like, this is not good. And then it turns out that he was no actual threat to her apart from giving her STDs.
I always thought the man who in that scene would have some significance, but it was just some random who never shows up again. Just some dude in glasses. You never really see him.
Yeah, and then we move on from there to the cab scene. And again, no audio. It switches from, I like that scene that you mentioned of her lying down and the camera lying down with her. I love that little moment of that scene. And it flashes to, her looking up at the driver and being like, weird. The driver can't tell if he's annoyed or turned on by what's happening. I feel like it's a mix of both.
He's just kind of staring through his rearview mirror. It's just like creepily, like she knows she's being watched and she's
It's just another layer of the voyeurism, and there's still no dialogue up until Liz is outside the elevator and she's talking to, I guess, one of the guys she, working with.
Yeah.
So you have that. And they say it's 9 minutes and that could drag. You're so absorbed by what's happening that you can't look away, and it doesn't feel like it's 9 minutes long. And you don't even really notice that they haven't spoken because he's able to show you what's happening.
It feels completely engrossing and normal. It's like, yeah, this is fine. No one's talking. The music helps and stuff to really move it along and to keep you engaged. It's very well edited. Like it very smoothly transitions from one thing into the next. And it's almost weird when people start talking. It's like, oh, wow, people talk in this movie.
Yeah. It's fun. He could have made a silent film, I feel like.
Although I have to say, one of my favorite characters in this film is the detective.
Yeah.
He's really funny. Sometimes the dialogue is corny, but sometimes it's so realistically like New York-y dialogue. And it was really funny. Like, yeah, this guy definitely is a type of policeman in New York.
That just so happens in the end that he knew what was happening all along, but he plays like he's an idiot the whole time.
He's hilarious. I love it.
He's a great character. Another scene that I love, and I really loved it on this watch, was the subway scene.
Oh, yeah.
Now we're flashing forward to Liz, now our protagonist. She has an instance with some people in the subway because she sees that Bobby is following her in the car, and they had that little car chase scene. And then she gets to the subway because she's trying to lose Bobby off her trail. She has an instance with the people on the subway, and you think they're going to be the threat now. She's lost Bobby. Then there's that scene where she jumps onto the subway, bumps into the cop, and she's telling the cop, there's someone following me, and I have these other people on me. And they look over to see where the guys are. And while they're looking, they left. The camera flashes, and we see Bobby jump on the subway, another subway car. It's so quick. It's also scary. And then it goes back to a silent scene.
Mm-hmm.
The flashes, the light is cutting in and out on the subway because that's what happens when you're underground.
Mm-hmm.
The flash from her looking at the cop, and it's looking back at Bobby, and it flashes to like the other subway car, and we see Bobby in there.
Yeah.
Like the flash.
He's in there the whole time.
Yeah, the camera's just panning back and forth. And I had already seen this movie, but I was still basically clutching on.
Yeah.
This is so terrifying. That's my favorite type of horror film, where you're like, what I'm seeing is not even necessarily gory or aggressive, but
that's disturbing.
It's the waiting of being like, what's going to happen? How do you feel about that scene and the way he utilizes the science in that and the panning of the back and forth?
Well, he creates this scenario where you can see this woman has no way out. Like on one side of her is these guys who don't like her, aren't going to help her. They're menacing her. On the other side is Bobby, who's trying to kill her. And on the third side is the police detective who's just kind of staring at her weirdly. It's clearly not going to help her.
Yeah.
And the look on his face is actually as disturbing to me as anything in that scene, because it's like, that guy did a good job, because I was like, is he going to arrest her? Is he going to help her? Is he going to... What's this guy? Why is he staring at her with this weird like expression on his face? But yeah, she's like cornered from all sides, and you're just sitting there with her in the subway. Like, and the fact that the kid bails her out is like this Deus ex machina or whatever. But if the kid wasn't there to bail her out, I mean, she's basically the whole time you're like, oh, she's done for. Like, this is not going to get out of.
Well, yeah, because we've already seen it happen to someone else, because we're like, well, maybe we have a third.
Yeah, there's
person
a third.
We're gonna be
It's going to be one woman, two women.
Actually, bringing it back to the police officer, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I did really like his performance, because the way he's looking at her is kind of with a weird side eye.
Yeah.
And you almost think maybe he sees that Bobby's there, and he's just like, I don't know what the deal is here, because he did mention there was a blonde following, and you're thinking that maybe he's just trying to suss out the situation, and then he leaves, so you realize, oh no, he never saw.
You can clearly see his eye line that he does kind of see Bobby. That is weird, that like he is looking at Bobby, and yet he's not moving to help her. So that is an interesting element of it, because like the eye line clearly at one point, it's like, oh wait, he sees that he's standing there.
Yeah.
The policeman in on it, like, why are they?
Even just thinking about that scene. It's so creepy. It's just so well done. I love that scene. I love the museum scene as well, but the subway scene is probably my favorite only because it just made me sweat so much that I was like, I'm going to vomit, I think.
It harnesses kind of all of the elements of living in a city and what are all the like almost like these are normal fears at night, living in a city at night. You're taking the subway at night. You're in the elevator at night, you know, you're meeting with strange men. No one's going to help. Like New York's the type of city where probably no one is. I like how when she's running through the subway, no one even like, there's no way anyone's helping her on that subway. See a woman being chased. They're like, okay, I guess you're fucked. Good luck to you. But it's so realistically like that is like the fear of being a woman alone at night running through New York. Like, oh shit.
That's like the basis of the film, though. It's the fears that women have to deal with on a daily basis.
They're realistic fears. Like this isn't made up stuff. This is like, yeah, creepy men on a subway.
Yes, like Bobby set aside. That's just one of issue to your night on a subway home. He'll be like, okay, yeah, now I have someone else trying to murder me. You did mention the film punishes Kate at the beginning. Yeah. That brings me to something, the inevitable, what De Palma gets accused of a misogynist. And this film being misogynist. I don't know how you feel. I'll let you talk about it, and then I'll talk about how I feel. I feel like we're probably on the same wavelength.
He is misogynist, and there are misogynist elements to it. But you know what? It's fun. I don't care. I notice it, and as a woman, it maybe kind of on a subliminal level bothers me. Like, did she really need to get cut up for all that? But it's also entertaining, and it's realistic, and I forgive I guess I just if you want to enjoy a movie sometimes by these older guys, you just gotta forgive the misogyny and move on. And it's easy to forgive it because the movie's so entertaining. Like, who cares, you know, like whatever.
Exactly. It's, I don't know how to say this. It's just the one character who's being punished in a way. And we have another woman who's a sex worker who's not totally, yes, she's being followed in her life in the uproar, but she comes out kind of the hero.
She comes out at the end of it. She's fine.
I think that, yes, there are misogynistic elements to it, but I don't think that anything he's saying is unrealistic.
Yeah.
Because all these things, they might not all happen in the space of 10 minutes to someone, you know, finding out you have multiple STDs and being murdered
on an elevator. Yeah.
You know, it's heightened reality, but those are, as we said, those are real fears that women had to deal with. And he's making a movie, you know, it's a movie.
Yeah.
But I don't think that he actively hates women. No. That's just my opinion. I don't think he's sitting there being like, I'm going to punish her for this reason.
Listen, it's not irreversible. Like, that guy hates women.
But people don't accuse it. At least I've never read people accuse him of the same thing they accused De Palma of.
Maybe because he's French, so they just decide whatever. It goes with the territory, but
that's true.
You know, there's much worse than De Palma.
I mean, I know we always bring it up, but there's Catherine Breillat also.
She's more misogynist.
Probably hates women too. I think she
does hate women. Yeah. For being a misogynist, enough of his films are centered around women and women experiences in like an interesting way. So
yeah.
And he gave Angie Dickinson this role of being sexual and all that stuff, and she's 50, and that was fun. And like, you know, he's not. Yeah, I think it's going really, really searching for something to hate to be focused on any kind of De Palma misogyny, like whatever.
I'm glad we agree on that. I know we did, but just wanted the listeners to know.
I mean, it's some of his stuff is woman coded, like.
Oh, yeah.
Like this movie. This movie was very woman.
I feel like most of his films have female leads.
Also, the woman playing Lexi, she was in Blowout, also being chased by a killer.
That was his wife at the time.
Oh, she was his wife. Okay.
Yeah.
She's good. She's fun.
I think she's fun too. She adds like a layer of lightness to it, even though there's...
She's like earthy. She's realistic. Mm-hmm. And I can believe her as this. And I like her interactions with the detective. They're fun together. As long as we're having a good time,
Well, I think that brings us to now the reveal. So now we've had Bobby chasing multiple people, namely the two women. There are hints throughout that obviously Michael Caine, Dr. Elliot's involved in some way. It doesn't shy away from that. You just don't know what to extend.
Yeah, it's a patient of his.
Yeah, exactly. And that he's hiding them, he's protecting them for some sort of reason. Even when he goes to see the doctor, who is the doctor of Bobby. And it's not until the second viewing that you're like, oh, you're looking at the doctor's face and reading his acting and being like, oh, he knows who this is. But on first watch, you just like, he seems suspicious.
They successfully diverted me until the end to not knowing it was him.
Goes to Dr. Elliot's place to seduce him so that she can get to the patient list. And there's a couple scenes where they flash at him looking at himself in the mirror on his little desk. There's like two specific scenes like that. And you're like, okay, something sinister is going to happen, but you don't know what. You get the switch of him being Bobby. I was like, what?
And I watched it this time with all of that in my mind, and you could see even from his first scene with Angie Dickinson, the way he's looking at her. He's good in this movie. Like his performance is very good. Like you see that sort of ambivalence of him, being this professional, her, psychiatrist, but the way he's looking at her is sort of very lechy, and he plays it well. Like there's a lot of shades to the way he plays that character.
It's not a character you often see Michael Caine have played or has played since.
No.
Like when I first went to go watch this movie, I was like, Michael Caine is in a De Palma movie?
Yeah, that was surprising. That was when I saw him in Hannah and Her Sisters too, I was like, wait.
He's a great actor.
Some of his early stuff is really interesting that he did.
Yeah, he's great in this movie. And then once you get that reveal, you kind of, as the audience, you kind of flash back to being like, oh, these were all the clues of the split personality that De Palma was giving us that you don't latch on to until you get that information.
Yeah.
And you see the different split things. And he does it right up until the end. It's like, I think on this watch, I was like, oh, he's looking at the mirror because I thought at first it was kind of like he's just looking at himself to be like, okay, I'm doing something bad. I'm going to sleep with this woman. And then he has a smirk on his look to be like, oh, I'm going to switch because it's Bobby taking over at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you feel about the treatment of split personality and the clues of just the trans elements? Because there is a point earlier where they talk about trans.
Yeah, there's on the TV. Yeah. We both watched the same Noah Baumbach interview with De Palma because in that interview, he says that at that time, there was a lot of the news coverage of, I guess at that time it was called transsexuals, but
yeah,
there was a lot of news about it. And he thought it was like a Jekyll and Hyde type, like being born in the wrong body. It was a Jekyll and Hyde type thing for him. Like that's how he thought about it in terms of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So just looking at it that way, the Jekyll and Hyde thing, and using the mirrors to like see that. I mean, he does it in a very clever way. Like it's sort of subtle. It's not too obvious.
No.
And you really have to pay attention to notice it. So I think, yeah, that's the best way to do it. Not being clever about it, like the split personality. It builds up. Like I like how it ramps up. It starts sort of very, you really can't know. I only noticed the way Michael Caine was doing things after the fact of already knowing that he's the guy. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a kind of indication of where this is going.
And it's funny, like after this character gets shot, you just kind of assume the film to end there, but there's still another about 15 minutes where we get the scene of Bobby, Dr. Elliot.
We get a shower. We get 2 shower scenes in one movie.
And that's also silent. It's flashing between her and the shower, realizing, oh, there's someone standing there. You see the nurse's shoes, the white shoes, and it's flashing between, and you see the razor and Liz trying to figure out, how am I going to get out of this? And then her throat slit, and you're like, I was not expecting another death to happen in this movie. But then she wakes up from the dream.
That's fun, though.
I just love someone who's having fun with it, but is also extremely capable. Artist and filmmaker.
Extremely, like everything is top notch. The camera, the light, the production designing, this music, the score, everything is just, it's beautiful to look at.
Mm-hmm.
The tone is so consistent and so engrossing. So yeah, like you can't say anything about The Craft because it's there.
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't get better than that.
I always say, I'm like, 'cause sometimes there's certain directors, even say maybe a Friedkin, who in his later career people weren't really talking about as often. When he passed away, everyone being like, "Oh yeah, I love this and that." I'm like, we don't need to wait for De Palma to pass away to appreciate his
Can
work.
we appreciate him right now?
Right? Because I know once, not that I'm bringing it on, but he's getting up there in age. It's just a natural thing. When he does, all of a sudden everyone's going to be like going back to rewatching and appreciating them. I'm like, but you could do it right now.
Yeah, that's what I don't like that we just sort of ignore these amazing artists. They're still with us.
Yes.
Appreciate them now. Where's the retrospective now? Let's do it now.
Yeah.
What are we waiting? Let's not wait for after.
Like, let us put on a retrospective. Like, we would gladly do it.
Yes, please. Let us tell him how much we fucking love him. Jesus.
Yeah, that's the thing about why I've never identified more with Baumbach. It's funny because you wouldn't expect someone like him to be so inspired by Baumbach, or by De Palma. But I think what I've noticed about people who are huge De Palma fans, they're like secret freaks.
Yeah.
And I think Baumbach is a secret freak.
Baumbach is a secret freak for sure.
Yeah. And I identify with that.
You can tell in his movies. He just doesn't. He's sort of a freak in a different direction. In his own filmmaking, he's a different kind of freak from De Palma, but clearly still a freak.
Yes. Well, I think that De Palma does have another one coming out.
Oh,
or he's filming. I can't remember what it's called, but I know that he has another one.
Oh my God, I can't.
Under the belt. So
yes.
Very excited for that.
I had no idea. Amazing.
Yeah, that was Just to Kill. I do have those couple other two last questions for you.
I could talk for another hour.
I know, I could too. The first question is same as always, the starter film. If you're recommending someone a De Palma film who's never seen his films, would you recommend this one?
Yeah, I'd go with Dress to Kill. Yeah, for sure.
He has just so many great ones that he could start off with, the 70s and the 80s stuff. There's just so much. Dress to Kill very much shows you who he is.
I know other people would say like Scarface or Carrie or whatever, but I don't know. For me, it's Dress to Kill. I like those other things, but
yeah, I don't know if I would say Scarface. Like, I love that movie. I don't know if I would say that to start. I would say like something like a Dress to Kill or Carrie or a Body Double.
Body Double,
being like
Body Doubles, immense.
This shows you what themes he likes to tackle, who he likes to ogle, and his filmmaking. So that's all you really need to know. And if you don't like it, if that's not for you, then that's fair. And if you do, then you're going to have a great time watching the rest of his stuff.
Everyone has the right to have shitty taste in things.
Hey, I have shitty taste in men. So.
Yeah, we all have shitty taste in something. Again, from that interview, he said movies. Mm-hmm. And I think he was quoting a French new wave director whose name I can't remember right now, but he said movies are about, a girl and a gun. You got to have a girl, you got to have a gun. I
feel like that's a Godard quote.
Yeah, it's a Godard quote, yeah. And now that would be considered misogynist or something, Yeah. But I think it's kind of holds true, you got to have a
yeah. I mean, what else do you need? Another question, the last question. It's a double bill. Which one would you pair it with and why? And what's the vibe you're going for when you're pairing them? I
would pair it with Repulsion.
Oh, okay. That's a good one.
I feel blondes and in distress.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the title of the double feature, Blondes in Distress.
That's a good one. I hadn't even thought of that. That's great.
Yeah, why not? Repulsion actually stresses me the hell out. That's one of the movies that actually genuinely I was stressed out. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's a great one. I haven't seen that one in so long, but I should rewatch it. But that would be a great double bill. I feel like I kind of went with a similar vibe with mine, and I picked The Naked Kiss, which is a Samuel Fuller movie, which has a blonde too, and there's a lot of tension there. And I don't want to ruin the ending for anyone, but it's kind of the same vein of what you think this film is going to be does not end up where, it starts.
it called? The Last Kiss?
The Naked
Oh,
Kiss.
The Naked Kiss. I need to see it.
I think you would like it a lot.
Okay, I gotta watch.
I feel like De Palma definitely loves that movie.
Oh, okay, I got it.
Like, there's no way it feels like a type of film that he was like, yeah, this is my type of movie.
What year was that?
It's 1964, actually.
Okay. I gotta watch it. I haven't seen that movie.
Yeah, I think you'll like it a lot. So, yeah, those are our Devil Bills.
Recommendations are always good, so.
That's what I'm here for. It's one of my few skills.
Mine too. That's all I know how to do is recommend movies.
Well, I had such a great time having you on. Thanks for helping me open up De Palma month. I think we hit it off with a banger, and it's going to be great from here. And I thank you so much for your insight and for being as enthusiastic about De Palma as I am.
Thank you, Felicia. I'm honored to be even thought of alongside De Palma by anybody. So thank you for having me.
Seeing Faces in Movies is an official podcast of the Your Royal Film Club. It's hosted and edited by Felicia and Roni. Intro music by Lamar Walker. If you like what you heard, let us know at seeingfacesinmovies.com or send us an email at seeingfacesinmovies@gmail.com. And while you're at it, please subscribe and rate the show wherever you listen to your podcast. And stay tuned for our next episode on Blowout.